the We Knew the Moon podcast, where we love all things empath, spiritual, witchy, unexplained, and spooky. Hosted by me, Dee Safier, co-founder of the Goddess Temple Twickenham, and joined by lots of special guests. Hi everyone! This is We Knew the Moon, and my name is Dee, and I'm joined today with Tracey. Tracey, the original We Knew the Mooner. Hi!
Oh, thank you, Dee. You're always going to be such a nice introduction, and I feel overwhelmed and not worthy.
Oh, bless you. You're totally worthy. We Knew the Moon. This is where we talk about all things empath, witchy, spooky, unexplained, and so forth. Tracey, you have a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous shop in Twickenham on Church Street called the Hare And The Moon. And I will put all the links in the show notes. And of course, you're the co-founder. We are co-founders of the Goddess Temple Twickenham.
It's a lot, isn't it? We're busy ladies today. We do a lot.
No wonder we're always knackered.
No.
So Goddess Temple Twickenham, this is the official podcast of it, goddesstempletwickenham.org. We do events. So if you're local to us, come and visit the shop. Come and join us at one of our events. They are super fun, aren't they?
The moon circles every full moon, which is like a meditation journaling practice. And then we do workshops every so many new moons. We did do them every new moon, but the workshops contain so much content. They're 3 hours. They're high energy, aren't they, Dee? Really interactive, where you get to make things and learn a spiritual practice. And there was just so much to plan that we figured we'd do them every so many
to properly be able to do them well, right? And we've had ones on like crystals and chakra healing. We've had ones on like we've got one coming up called Tea and Tarot, which we're so excited about, huh?
Yeah, everyone's really excited about this workshop. We're giving a free tarot deck away, the Light Seers deck, and then we're hopefully going to be doing a little bit of tea leaf reading as well.
The tarot reading, we're not just going to be going through what each and every single card means, because you get that in every tarot deck anyways with the little book that comes with it. It's going to be very much about how to do a reading intuitively, how to get confident reading for yourself and for others, isn't it?
And I'm really excited because it's kind of got me back into my tarot, which I had a bit of a block on for a long time. But that's tarot practice, right? Like you have to have the right deck that speaks to you.
Exactly. And we've got our gorgeous We Knew the Moon tarot journal, because I was struggling. Like I do a lot of tarot reading and then I'll take a picture on my phone and it'll get lost in the 400 million pictures on my phone. And I'm never able to like refer back to readings or anything. So I made tarot journal where you can log your readings. Let me find a good page for those on Patreon, where you can put your query, the deck you've used, even what phase of the moon it is. You've got space to draw the cards that you've pulled, and then you've got space to write your interpretation of them. So those are going to be available as well soon, or maybe they are already. Really depends. We're recording in advance and I haven't planned this out yet. Like I said, you can watch this on Patreon. New thing for season 4. If you sign up for any amount on Patreon, then you have access to the unedited full video of all the episodes in season 4. So you can see how cute Tracey looks.
Crazy hair, Dee. We were just talking about my crazy hair.
I know you get worried about the subject because since you left being the regular co-host, I know I've gone a little bit more dark because you were the bubblegum to my goth. And now that the goth in me has been left to my own devices, a lot of times I go down a spookier route.
Spooky route. I don't even listen to your episode that you've launched this week, Creepy Houses, Blood on Light Switches. I'm like, no, I think I'll wait until it's summertime to listen to this. I can't cope right now. Sorry, Dee.
No.
Yes, I am.
Well, but you know, I also love you very much and would never want to hurt you mentally or physically. And I like to match my topics to the person, to my guest. So like, what would they enjoy listening to? What do they have like experience in and whatever? So please don't be worried.
Sarita looked terrified, Dee. I don't know what you did to the poor lady.
She loves horror films. I might have broken her a bit on that episode. Yeah. So I am going to talk to you today about food and spirituality.
Oh, food.
Because you and I are both big fans of both of those things. So I'm not going to talk about like hallucinogenics and edibles and things like ayahuasca trips and any of that. I'm actually not going to talk about those, where you go on the sort of drug journeys to find yourself, because that's a whole other episode. What I'm going to cover is the following: theories about food and diet in different religions, some examples of food in spiritual practice, like cacao ceremonies, which we've done before in our Goddess Temple events. And then I'm going to list foods that are good and bad for your spirituality.
I bet it's all the naughty stuff, isn't it? Chocolate. Oh, but cacao's kind of chocolate, isn't it?
Yeah, cacao is chocolate in its purest form without all the shit that they put in it, right?
Yeah.
So I was inspired by an article on inspired.com, funnily enough, called Soul Food, Spirituality and Nutrition. Also leanandhealthy.me, how the food you eat affects your spirituality. Healing Earth, food and spirituality. The Wellbeing Oz website, Uplift, and Science Direct. So I wanted to start with a poem.
What's happened?
I don't know. So this is a poem by Pablo Neruda, who's a very famous writer, but don't ask me what else he's done. And the poem is called The Onion. And in this poem, he shows us how even a simple onion possesses awesome and sacred powers. Do you want to hear the poem?
I think I know this poem.
What? Is it a famous poem? I've never heard of it before.
It was there can't be many poems about onions. It was on my on the wall of my English literature classroom, and I remember it very well, about peeling the layers and how the different layers represent. I can't remember it too well. Is it?
Well, I don't know. I'll read it to you and you tell me at the end if it is the poem that you remember from school. I'm going to try my best poem reading voice. I don't really know.
Poem voice. Poet.
Onion, luminous flask, your beauty formed, petal by petal, crystal scales expanding you, and in the secrecy of the dark earth, your belly grew round with dew. That's not actually the full poem because it's quite a long poem about an onion, but the line that got me later on was, you make us cry without hurting us. So yeah, I just wanted to set the tone. I don't know what that tone is. I think if you're like me, basically Arab, then you know that eating can be transcendent, right? And the reason that I have always struggled with my weight is because I literally feel like eating is a spiritual experience for me. But if you think of phrases like my body is my temple, you think about this link between eating clean and pure food to help with the mind and the body and the spirit connection, right? If you had to guess what foods were good for your spirituality, you'd probably think like unprocessed stuff, fresh stuff, raw stuff, etc.
And from good source as well.
Yeah, exactly. Most religions incorporate food in some way in their worship or their celebration, or sometimes the absence of food. For example, fasting during Lent or Ramadan. So the idea of connecting with those less fortunate than us, as well as to enter a specific state of mind. So we also have things like shamanic fasting and so forth. So shamans in Peru have a medicine man's purification diet. So they have a specific diet where they refrain from salt, sugar, and heavy meats. It's again kind of what you'd expect, like things that are easy for your body to digest and maybe not too much like seasoning or flavor.
And this isn't to lose weight, is it? This is to heighten your spiritual intuition. Yeah. So your body can focus on spiritual stuff rather than digestion.
Exactly. Because again, we're always going back to that connection between mind, body, spirit. So the idea is that all of them have to be working well and in tune with each other. And you can clog up your body with all of these processed things and too much seasoning and all of that kind of stuff. They believe, these shamans, that spiritual food, you have to like pay attention, intuitive attention to what your body needs right now. What your body is craving is actually a spiritual message And that if you change your attitude and your behavior, your food cravings and dietary habits will also become healthier. I'm going to tell you a type of food, and you tell me what you think the spiritual message might be. What are you feeling if you are craving something specific? Okay. What do you think your underlying emotion is if you're craving crunchy foods?
Anger.
Yes. Crunchy food helps us act out our anger in a safe way.
But I need to answer these without overthinking it then. I get it. I love that. Okay. Yeah.
Providing us an outlet so we don't have to deal with the people or circumstances causing us to be angry.
Like when we grind our teeth when we're stressed.
Exactly.
Like that, but you're eating something instead.
So what do you think the feeling is when you're craving salty foods?
Oh, I'm going to say like maybe a detox of some sort.
No, it's fear. We crave salty foods because we want to have more spice in our lives, but we are too scared to take a risk.
So we go for salt instead.
Yeah, like the easiest, the gateway seasoning of salt.
I think they're pushing the explanation a little bit on that one, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know how much I believe all of this, but I think to an extent there are some truths, but yeah, you can always go a bit too far. High gluten or wheat products. So think carbs. What are you seeking?
Comfort.
Comfort and safety, exactly. Gluten products give us comfort and safety we need in a non-threatening way. Sugar, what are you seeking? What are you looking for when you are craving sugar?
Love, I'm going to say, because I turn to chocolate when I'm having a bad day. And usually that's because of lack of love for myself or lack of love from others.
You're not a million miles off. It's excitement. When we can't provide excitement for ourselves, sugar does it for us. We're unable to allow someone else to share joy with us. We can use sugar as a substitute playmate.
That makes sense. I like that. It's true, Dee.
What are you doing? I'm eating a substitute playmate. It's weird. Okay, what about dairy, milk, ice cream, fatty cheese?
Oh, connection to nature.
I should have given you more clues. It is basically love, your previous answer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, our first food was milk, mother's milk in some cases. Rich, sugary, and or fatty dairy products represent the unconditional love we received from our mother, or were supposed to receive during infancy. We crave dairy products and foods when we desire unconditional love and protection and can't find it in our everyday lives. So again, obviously there's dairy and chocolate, so maybe that's what you are. It's literally what you said, wasn't it?
It just makes you think, what am I eating right now? Like, what am I? Is there anything on there, Dee, that you're eating a lot of that you think, oh, this makes sense, this is why?
Yeah, we're coming to it. And you guess which one it is. Next one, though, actually, chocolate.
Is chocolate not the sugar?
Well, it's obviously a combination of sugar and dairy, but there's specific, basically, chocolate is linked to sexual drive. It's a safe way to feel sensual, which explains the ads a lot, because like you always have like some woman eating chocolate sexily, which is not how everyday people eat chocolate, is it? We're normally in our pajamas.
The hormones in your body, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Do something to the hormones. I feel good.
Exactly. I think it increases your serotonin, which is the feel-good drug, which I'm sure must be linked to love and sex and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Alcohol. What do you think we're seeking when we're craving alcohol?
To let go if you've had a bad day, to just stop overthinking. Like numbing.
Numbing, yeah. It's acceptance. If you don't feel accepted for who you really are, or worse, if you were punished for being yourself when you were young, alcohol can provide the illusion of self-acceptance. So it's kind of what we were saying, like, basically numbing your feelings, right? If it can also protect you from perceived dangers of intimacy. The sugar in alcohol can serve as a substitute for excitement. The corn in alcohol can buffer feelings of failure, and grain alcohol can give us the warm feelings we might lack in our relationships.
Just be very interesting to like go around a bar and just silently judge people on what they're drinking.
Yeah. Someone seeking the warm feelings they lack in their relationships. Yeah, or when the bartender asks you, what are you looking for? Something to buffer my feelings of failure. A corn alcohol then.
Yes. Good cocktail bar in the making there, Dee.
Right? Right.
Mhm.
What feelings are you having, or what are you trying to bring out, or what are you trying to repress? And then make a cocktail based on that.
Yeah.
Feel like it should be twinned with some kind of therapy
I was
provision as
just
well.
thinking maybe you should set up some sort of therapist in a therapy zone as well. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think we're feeling when we're craving fatty foods?
Oh, all of the above, just everything together, Dee.
Pretty much shame. Fatty foods hide our internal shame. They also cocoon us in a bubble of shame, fat, so we're safe from other people. After all, letting someone in close might make us feel even worse about ourselves.
Oh, that makes me feel sad.
I know, but we've all been there, haven't we?
The way, little plug, I just finished watching. I know it's really old. I've only just found it. My Mad Fat Diary on Netflix.
Oh, so good.
So good. As soon as you said that, and it's quite triggering. I think there's a lot of characters in there with so many deep layers. And you think it's about eating and you think it's that simple, but it's not. Like the psychological issues behind food intake.
How good is that actress?
Yeah, so good.
Phenomenal. I don't know her name, but she's amazing. You can't just say, oh, well, just stop eating bad food, because there is probably some emotional reason why you're comfort eating, why you're eating your feelings, why you turn to this, why you're scared to lose weight. You think that people won't be scared to lose weight, but actually, exactly what we just said, for a lot of people, it's like a comfort blanket,
Yeah.
because you can say, oh, well, they're rejecting me because I'm fat. If you don't have your weight to blame for why you didn't get that job, or why someone doesn't fancy you, or why you don't have friends, then you have to look deeper and be like, well, maybe it's me. So there is some sort of, again, this bubble of fat so that we're safe from other people. All right, so back to food. I'm going to talk a bit
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
But totally, one of the main messages of this episode is that, you've got to target why you might have an addictive personality, or why you might be using different substances, whether it's drugs, alcohol, food, whatever it might be. There will be underlying issues in most cases, and it's not just a case of ending that bad habit, because you'll probably transfer your addiction to something else.
So a lot of people choose to turn to their food as a control mechanism when everything else feels like it's spiraling. And sadly, for some people, that is overeating or binging. And for some people, that's undereating.
I'll tell you a really good show for understanding, because again, having always struggled with my weight, meaning being over rather than under, it's much harder for me to understand anorexia, being underweight, and all of that kind of stuff. But there was a TV series that I don't think they do anymore, Super Size versus Super Skinny.
Oh, yes.
So it's someone who's overweight and someone who's underweight. Obviously, they both have their compulsions, either anorexia, bulimia, or whatever, and overeating for whatever reason it might be. And yeah, it's probably quite problematic these days, but you can still find it on some of the streaming things. But they do the shocking moment where they put what they each eat in a week in this like tube, right? And obviously there's like a vast difference. And I think from memory, they had to swap diets as well for a few days, which you can imagine was triggering, traumatic for both people, right? Because you can imagine being anorexic and being force fed, basically. I think the show was probably a bit too problematic to be made today. But for me, it gave me a really good insight into sort of someone who struggles with food on the other side of the spectrum in terms of eating enough. Hinduism, food and Hinduism. We think of Hinduism, countries like India, where we think of amazing food and lots of it. And, these feasts and portions are always massive and stuff. So you can see how culturally food is very important. So I want to talk to you about how it's also spiritually considered very important. Because in Hinduism, food is divided into 3 categories, depending on its effect on your body and your spirit. Yeah, which I thought was really interesting. You know how we've got like, oh God, I don't even remember how many categories of food, like protein, dairy, water. What are the categories? carb. You know what I'm saying, right?
I know the thing we learned at school, all the things that we're supposed to be eating. Vegetables, fruit and vegetables day.
Yeah, fresh. I don't know what they are. But they divided up into 3 categories, and not just effect on the body, but also the spirit, which I thought was really cool, right? The first category is called tamasic food, which is basically bad shit. Overripe food, spoiled food, stale food, processed or canned. Basically the kind of food that makes you feel sluggish and lethargic. Like we all know that. That's, the food that you eat when you're binging Netflix, right?
Yeah.
When you're going through a breakup or when you go to the cinema, basically. Rajasic food, I really hope I'm pronouncing these right, but rajasic food is spicy and pungent food. It's hot or stimulating and is related to overactivity, agitation, and overstimulation. There's loads of supplements that contain like peppers and cayenne in them it's supposed to give you a boost to do a really good workout. So if you think these foods will stimulate you. And then we have sattvic food, which is basically the main one that you want to be eating. It's pure, fresh, light. It leaves you feeling refreshed and clear and alert. It includes fresh vegetables, fruits, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and so forth. So basically a salad. They're saying eat a fucking salad. I don't know where meat comes into this, but I guess, a lot of Hindus are vegetarians, so it wouldn't. So this was developed over 2,000 years ago, and they still pay attention to this now. And when we read it, it falls very much in line with like what we know scientifically these days, right? Okay, so Buddhists, I didn't know, but not all Buddhists are vegetarian. I assume they all were. I don't know why. Because they were actually taught to accept whatever is given. If you're given meat or if it's all that's available, then it's allowed in that belief system. But the key thing with eating and food and Buddhism is to eat mindfully. Not a surprise because they're all about doing everything mindfully. This is the concept that I struggle with, but Buddhists have a real issue with desire. You're not actually meant to desire anything or anyone because you're meant to be so self-sufficient in every way that you don't have strong desire. And again, I guess this translates into food and eating because they say that if you eat just for pleasure, then you're more likely to be selfish and give way to temptation. I mean, I can see the link that like if you've got an addictive personality and if you like instant gratification, then that's going to translate not just in eating, but also drinking, shopping, whatever. I always think of, this is totally unrelated, but it was such a lovely concept. Do you remember Emily, who comes to a lot of our events, when she talked about core happiness versus junk happiness?
Yeah. It's a good way of putting it, isn't it? Core happiness comes from non-material stuff, like just walking in a park or being with your friends, like soul happiness. And then your junk happiness is shopping, the need for nice things, the need to eat nice things.
And it's exactly like junk food. You get that instant gratification, those warm, fuzzy feelings during the act of it. And then afterwards, you probably feel worse, or at least the happiness wears off super quickly.
Yeah.
In Buddhism, you should be wanting to eat food that your body runs cleanly on so that you can be spiritually awakened. You shouldn't be craving food for the taste of it. So I'm going to go on to one that is a little bit more familiar, at least the basics of it. We know that in Islam, you have food that's halal and not halal. I'm sure you've heard of this too.
Yeah.
So it's an Arabic word, which means lawful or permitted. So if you're a Muslim, you want to eat halal food. It's the food that you're permitted to eat. Haram means naughty. So this is a word you can imagine I've heard multiple times in my growing up because actions, food, behaviors, etc., they can be haram. These terms are commonly used in relation to food products, meat products, cosmetics, personal care products, pharmaceuticals, ingredients, etc. So it's not just food that can be halal or haram. There's also a third category called mashbu, which means doubtful or questionable. So Muslims eat to maintain a strong and healthy physique in order to be able to contribute their knowledge and effort for the welfare of society. Muslims are supposed to make an effort to obtain the best quality nutritionally. So again, you have to be healthy physically so that you can be a contributing member to your society, which is nice. I like that.
Yeah, it does make sense. A lot of sense.
right? Because if you're hurting yourself physically by the food you eat, you're not going to be able to be as active in participating in things. You might even tilt and go the other way and become a burden if you're having health issues as a result of your eating. So here are some of the food that are haram. Do you know some? I know you know some. Like, what are Muslims not allowed to eat or drink?
Pork.
Alcohol. A good, in quotation marks, Muslim is technically not allowed to drink alcohol or take an intoxicant. Any animal product that's not halal. Gelatine that's non-halal. So gelatine normally comes from pork, or it might come from beef that is not halal. And also, I thought this was interesting, and I didn't find the reason why, but they're also not allowed to eat carnivorous animals or birds of prey. So they can only eat vegetarian animals. Maybe it's because, say you eat a carnivorous animal, the only one I can think of is a lion. If that lion eats meat, the meat that that lion is eating is not halal. It's not been killed in a halal way. They might have even eaten a pig, and then you would be consuming non-halal products. All right, it's Judaism. What about Jews? Pork, shellfish, exactly. So Jews, their religion involves having a kosher diet. And again, this is kind of like a spectrum. Kosher can mean very many different things. It can be different levels. Same with like Muslims. They might adhere to it more or less, depending on what their belief system is. We shouldn't talk about Muslims or Jews as one entity that all believes the exact same thing. And I will get this all wrong and sound super offensive, but some Jews obviously eat pork, but they're probably less religious. They're probably secular Jews. Others won't eat pork, but they don't require their plates to be buried overnight and stuff like that, which I know some people do believe in as well. So, but the belief is that the body is a gift for which we are responsible. And I like that.
It's true. It is true. Because if your body fails and you've not looked after it, that carries your soul.
So it's even thought by some Jews that you cannot fully comprehend the Torah, so the religious book, if you are hungry, which I totally relate to because I can't concentrate if I'm hungry. Can you?
No, not really.
This one you're going to love. Chakras and food.
Here we go. Home turf.
This is from an article called Spiritual Nutrition, Eating to Nourish the Chakras. So I'm going to name the chakra, and then I want you to tell me what kind of food you think you should eat to nourish that specific chakra. Right. So the first chakra, the root chakra.
Really quizzing me today, aren't you?
I know. But I'm also not torturing you with stories of murders and ghosts. So you're welcome. So root chakra, what kind of foods do you think you need to eat to nourish your root chakra?
I'm going to say red food. So like red berries, maybe red meat.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I'm actually only going to quiz you on one because you've got the theme of it. Basically, you're eating food according to the color of that chakra, right? Wow. So root chakra, the red chakra, you would eat things like red meat, beets, grapes, strawberries, cherries. The sacral chakra, which is the orangey one, you would eat yams, salmon, sweet potatoes, papaya, and wheat. If you wanted to nourish your solar plexus, which is yellow, it would be corn, grapefruit, squashes.
Citrusy.
Heart chakra, which is green. You're talking about vegetables and green sauces. Blue foods for the throat chakra, such as blue-colored berries, as well as spices, which stimulate the mouth. Now, I can't wait to be properly working on my third eye because when you're working on your third eye, you're looking for purple foods such as grapes, as well as vision-inducing substances like wine, tobacco, and organic cacao. So interesting, isn't it? Because these are some of the foods that are totally forbidden in other belief systems.
Yeah. And I know we weren't talking about drugs, hallucinogenics, psychedelic drugs, but there is a really good episode on Netflix, Fantastic Fungi, however you say it. That's the third eye one. Not that we endorse. Yeah. I would never take hallucinogenics.
I mean, I've had loads of fun on hallucinogenics, but I'm not endorsing them either.
No.
I'm just saying that my journey was super fun on them.
Did it help with your third eye?
I don't think I took them with a view of opening up my third eye. And again, lots of belief systems where you use these for your spiritual development. And then finally, we've got the crown chakra, which is white foods such as parsnips, white asparagus. Sounds like a fancy restaurant, doesn't it? And fish, as well as ceremonial substances like wormwood, which is used in absinthe, which is also hallucinogenic, salvia, which is kind of like weed effect, like cannabis, wine and bread, as in communion, and sacred herbs such as sage and lemongrass.
Nice.
That's a fun one too, isn't it? So going on to Ayurveda, which is again linked to the chakras and everything, the very similar belief systems. They believe in eating seasonally. Eating seasonally makes so much sense because for a start, you cut down on like food miles. If you're trying to eat a food that's out of season in your country, then it has to be imported from somewhere else or grown in like greenhouses, which are incredibly draining on resources and stuff like that.
If you see strawberries in Tesco in December,
they're from somewhere else or a greenhouse. And, you know, quite often they don't taste as well, or they've suffered as a result of their long journey. So they're not as fresh. Loads of restaurants now are all promoting locally grown and seasonal foods and seasonal menus, much more than before. So they count 6 seasons, though, instead of 4. And they believe that eating seasonally supports health, but also happiness. I love this idea of thinking about the mental effects of food as well. March to April, so think springtime, Vasanta Ritu time, is when you eat lightly and sleep lightly. May to June is Grishma Ritu, where you eat lightly and drink cold fluids. Makes sense because it's like summertime. July, August, Varsha Ritu, which is the monsoon season. So there you reinforce the appetite and you eat hot foods. So we're coming up to winter, right? September, October, Sharad Ritu is the short summer, Indian summer, I'm guessing. So you eat cool, sweet, and astringent foods. November, December is winter, Hemanta Ritu, where you eat and exercise a lot. And January, February, which is the cold winter, Shishira Ritu, as with the previous one, eat and exercise, but also spend time in reflection. So how nice is that? Your diet is linked to your like meditation and your exercise and everything. I think that's so perfect. It's like
it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it, as well?
It's like your lifestyle rather than just your eating diet.
Yeah. I think that's the balance with food as well. Some people eat to fill a gap, which we talked about. Some people actually eat, and I'm actually towards one of these people. I don't know if you've probably noticed, I eat to live. I don't enjoy eating. I don't enjoy going out for dinner. I don't enjoy food. I find it hard. I can go very much all day, sadly to say, without eating. And then I go to, I have to eat now because I have to fuel my body. It's not something that I look forward to. It's not something that I enjoy. I hate going to the supermarket. I hate cooking. But some people are just like that. And so it's nice that you could find another purpose to eat other than you have to stay alive. That it becomes, I love the idea. I love this episode because it's given me more ideas of how to incorporate food into my kind of almost religious lifestyle practice.
And that might make you a little bit more excited about it, right?
Yeah. If the idea of eating was going to help me meditate better or be more in tune with the seasons, helps me so much more than it's just like, am I getting enough nutrients right now? And I know to some people this sounds really alien, but to others, hopefully it makes sense.
We're very familiar with the concept of eating to stay alive, I think. Also very familiar with the concept of eating for pleasure or comfort. Also very familiar with eating for specific exercise purposes, like if you want to be a great runner or if you want to build up your muscle or whatever. All of these things we're used to hearing about. Just never really properly thought too much about eating for your spiritual well-being.
No.
Which I thought was just really fun. It makes total sense. All of these things make sense to me, even if they contradict. Some of them contradict, like Muslims are not allowed to drink, whereas others are saying it's very good for your third eye and your crown chakra. But their reasoning behind it kind of makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
I wanted to go into how food affects your spirituality then. Is there any evidence behind it? You know, I like my evidence. Well, the answer is it totally makes sense because your eating and what you put in your body affects your sleep and your energy level, as well as your optimism and your mood. So in a nutshell, bad food, whatever that might mean, will have a negative impact on your energy, your health, your weight, and therefore your ability to be a good Christian or a good Muslim or a good Jew or whatever. Outside of religion, spirituality, after all, is our connection to our life. So we need to treat our body with respect in order to achieve enlightenment. There's like no way you can disrespect your body by eating just whatever shit and expect to achieve some kind of spiritual enlightenment, according to most of these different spiritual belief systems. If we fail to give our beloved nervous system the critical nutrients it needs to function optimally and remain calm, we can become stuck in the primal reactive way of living, unable to transcend to higher levels of awareness.
Love this day. It's inspiring me to get the old cooking book out, you know.
It's inspiring me to make a fucking spiritual cookbook. That's probably So I found a quote and I'm going to read it to you. And then I want us to discuss how much we agree with this quote. Don't eat anything your great-grandmother wouldn't recognize as food. There are a great many food-like items in the supermarket that your ancestors wouldn't recognize as food. Stay away from these.
Interesting.
But what they mean is if it's a kind of newfangled invention of food.
You're talking about my favorite chicken super noodles day.
Yeah, it's either processed or traveled from far, which again is not necessarily going to be as fresh as local food, et cetera, et cetera.
Thing is, though, we also have things like hummus and food from other countries now that our great-grandmothers have.
My great-grandmother would have been Arab, so she would have been totally on board with hummus.
You're all right.
Yeah, I've got like Belgium and Palestine.
You've got a very cultural family, whereas I'm just like UK. So what would they have at?
So I get the logic that like a lot of newer foods are more processed, which tends to be worse for you than fresh food and single ingredient items. They talk a lot about that, but I just find that kind of depressing. I get it, but I don't think I could live by it. This is what I would ask people to take away from this. Try to eat mindfully anyways. Pay a bit of attention to what you're putting in your body. I would recommend cutting down and eating in moderation, not cutting out, because I do a lot of bad shit. But if you can moderate the processed foods, all the better. If you can try to take pleasure in eating like fresh foods as much as you can. And I know I'm coming from a total place of privilege because it's fucking expensive to eat fresh foods where we are anyways, isn't it?
Can I recommend the Gusto recipe box? If I say Gusto or Gusto, they are a subscription service that do a lot of good vegetarian meals.
Yeah, I love them. I used to have them.
Fish, because I don't eat a lot of meat, but I do eat fish. And they offer a lot of lovely fish recipes and prawns. And they send you the box. You can have up to 4 meals a week. It's all fresh food. None of it's frozen. It's all fresh vegetables. They give you the recipe card.
What I love is that they give you, and from memory, you can choose whether it's 1, 2, or 4 people or whatever.
Yeah.
But they give you the exact amount of ingredients you need for each recipe.
Yeah.
Because how fucking annoying is it when it's like you need a pinch of something for a recipe and you're like, right, but I can't go to the supermarket and buy a pinch.
No.
I gotta fucking buy a kilo bag of it and then just use a pinch of it and then put the rest of it in my cupboard, never to be used again. Whereas they send you the exact amount that you need. Well, thank you so much for listening to my long and windy road of food and spirituality.
Thanks, Dee. I'm off. I'm hungry. I need to go have a look what's in my fridge now. My tummy's rumbling.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And thank you so much, Tracey. Love having you on the show. And I'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Bye.
Bye. We Know the Moon is the official podcast for the Goddess Temple Twickenham. Don't forget, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. You can also visit our website, weknowthemoon.co.uk, for all of our upcoming events and merch. If you sign up for any amount on our Patreon, you'll be able to watch our video recordings of our podcast from season 4 onwards, with all the raw bits. That usually means more swearing. Thanks for listening.